Christina, do we have a quorum tonight?
Yes, Vice Chairman Corcoran, we do have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Hi, it's Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. This is a meeting of the Airport Commission for Palm Springs. Chairman Dada is unable to facilitate tonight, so I'm going to step in and lead our meeting this evening. I'll officially call to order and we'll do a Pledge of Allegiance. Ken Hendrick, are you with us tonight? There you are. Do you want to lead us in the pledge, please, Ken?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one country under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ken. Christina, has the agenda been posted?
Yes, it has.
Let's take a roll call, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Please take a moment to unmute your microphones. Commissioners Adams,
Present.
Breslin,
Present.
Padilla,
Present.
Burke,
Present.
Corcoran,
Present.
Dada, Beltman,
Here.
Freemuth,
He's here. I just saw him. I think he's on mute.
Yeah, he's here.
thank you. Hedrick,
Here.
Hone,
Present.
Hughes,
Present.
Martin. We see Martin. Miller,
Here.
Payne,
Present.
Philbrook,
Present.
Pye,
Here.
Schmitz,
Here.
Suero,
Here, present.
Wheel. Do we see Commissioner Wheel? Thank you very much.
Great. So the agenda's been posted. Do we accept the agenda? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Great. Thank you for that. Christina, do we have any public comments tonight?
We have no public comments that were scheduled, and we will give it a moment to see if anyone raises their hand to see if they'd like to speak at this time. Let's give it a moment here. I do not show that anyone wishes to speak at this time.
Great. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
We need to get approval for the minutes of December 15th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting? And if so, can we have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Okay. And
Second.
Peters, thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. Okay, introductions and presentations. Harry, do we have anything tonight?
We have no presentations or introductions tonight.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to the city manager report. Did everyone have an opportunity to read the report that Justin sent to the commission?
Yes.
Any comments or questions about that?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ken.
The Feather Airport Strategic Planning, last paragraph, the last 5 lines. Can anyone further explain what is being discussed there? Is there a general review of all the committees and the commissions in the city?
Harry, do you want to take a shot at that, or would you like me to just create context for the email I sent to him?
I believe as a part of the strategic plan for the city, yes, the council and the city manager, they are reviewing each commission's work So I believe that is what he was referring to. But to narrow that context a bit, one of the questions, one of the discussions that Vice Chairman Corcoran and I had last week was, would it be prudent to move forward with strategic planning for the airport? And we did ask that question of the city manager, and his response was he would prefer to wait on that.
And I think the both prefer to wait until the new executive director is announced, but also whatever we do will be in the context of what the city is doing and looking at the overall planning process and how commissions will be engaged in that planning process. So I think in my read on it, Ken, the last five lines is that he wants to align whatever we decide to do in our strategic planning we talked about at our last meeting with what the city is going to do overall. So the two issues of when the ED is announced, he would like that person to be involved. And whatever we do, our approach that we take will be in the context of what the city is doing overall.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about the note from the city manager? Okay, let's move on to discussion and action items. We have two. Harry, would you like to begin, please?
Yes, I will turn it over to Daniel. I believe he's on the call to present the Air Service Incentive Program.
Go ahead. Just to remind everyone, if you're not on mute, please mute your screen if you would, please. Thank you. Daniel, we can't hear you.
I think Daniel's either still on mute or he's got a problem with technology. So we can pause on the presentation for a little bit while he gets rebooted here, and we can move on to Victoria. If that's appropriate.
Let's go for it. Victoria?
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and do a, Harry, am I going to review the concession RFP schedule?
Let's discuss the Lamar advertising first.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we just wanted to bring to the commission's attention that, and advise the commission that the airport advertising concession contract with Lamar is under negotiation for one year extension. So we are trying to get that extended for one more year, expiring on March 31st, 2023. The extension will reinstate the MAG that was waived due to COVID and is scheduled to go to City Council in February. So just a quick update on that. And then I can go ahead and do the financials.
Well, wait. I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. What are the details of it in the sense of what does a 1 year extension give us and what's the cost?
Yeah, so the 1 year extension right now is just waiving the MAG. So I don't have the details on what the MAG would be able to provide us for the next upcoming year. We know that we wanted to extend this out because we wanted to make sure that we have a good plan in place for the upcoming year. So we're going to see if we want to go out for a new RFP for an advertising agreement, because the one that we've had in place has been in place for quite some time now, over probably 10 years now. Originally, the contract was, it originally belonged to Corey Advertising, and then it got taken over by Lamar. So it'd probably be a good time for us to consider maybe going out for an RFP for a new advertising contract. So the 1-year extension just gives us some time to make sure that that's what we want to do and that's where we're going to go with it.
So we don't have a cost associated with that 1-year extension?
I don't have that information available at this time.
Okay, could I request that you get it to us, you get either email it to all of us or something of that nature so we know?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
I have a
you.
question.
Question?
Yes.
Yes, I'm just curious, Victoria, Commissioner Payne here.
Hi.
Does this Lamar contract cover both static and displays? For example, the displays you see when you walk in from deboarding through into the main lobby. Is it all advertising at the airport?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. It does cover that.
Got it.
So I'm-
And I'm curious, of all the places that you could advertise,
Mhm.
are you covering, think of it as a capacity to advertise?
Mhm.
Are you 100% or 80% or 20% or to be determined?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Would that be in the information that Scott requested, Commissioner Miller, and would it come as part of that?
I'm not sure. We can maybe request that from Lamar. I do know that the existing contract that they have, they still have about a good amount of additional capital infrastructure that they're supposed to do here at the airport. So I know that there's some space that still could use some advertising signs that maybe could even be digital signage. So I'm not 100% sure on the capacity of what is existing and what could be what is 100% utilized. So we can probably request that from Lamar and see if they can provide that.
Hey,
Yeah, that'd be
hey,
interesting.
Victoria.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You guys can hear me now. Great, it's Daniel. I'm on the advertising
hi,
thing, guys. So Hi. Victoria and I kind of handle together. She handles the contract and the lease, and I handle kind of everything that's like customer facing. So the public sees it, like I approve the ads that get put out and everything. All digital space is currently 100% sold out, so we're doing very well on that. And then Scott's question about a cost, there's no cost to us to extend the contract. We just extend their current contract as it is. We reinstate the MAG and just continue collecting the revenue.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can we please have the person identify himself? We only have a telephone number.
Peter, it's me. It's Daniel. I had to call in on my phone because my laptop microphone's not working for some reason.
Okay, well, I just wanted to know who was on the line. Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Okay. Any other questions about this?
So I'm sorry, this is Scott Miller. So staff is reviewing this, and because the contract is up in March, they want to use this as a stopgap measure and to go to the council for a 1-year extension. And is this extension part of the original contract that just needs council approval? Or has other options been looked at, or does staff had time to look at other options? I'm just kind of curious.
This will be a 1-year extension that goes to council for approval, and then we'll use this year to look at other options, decide what we may want to do going forward. Do another RFP, bring it in-house, whatever. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you want to move forward, Victoria, and do the financial summary, or Daniel, do you want to pick up the?
If it's okay, I know Daniel has time constraints, so maybe Daniel, if you are ready to go, you're more than welcome to proceed.
I am. Thank you. Let me reshare my screen. Okay. All right. So the packet, you guys should have seen the new proposed incentive program sent out in your packet. last week from Christina. I worked on this together with Ollie Lamb from Elevon Pacific, the air service development consultant that works with Visit Greater Palm Springs. He's also on the call to help answer any potential questions that may come up. And then we also worked with Visit Greater Palm Springs, and Scott White and Gary also reviewed it as well. So I'll kind of go through it. So this first page just states the program goals, very similar to what we had in the 2019 one, just kind of explains why we're doing it, what we hope to achieve through it. I've also got a time frame in there starting on having it start on March 1st of this year, and then expiring on March 31st of 2025. So a 3-year program, or it could be longer if the city council decides to extend it, or shorter if they decide to cancel it for whatever reason. This next page is what the key differences between the 2019 Air Service Incentive Program and the 2022 program. So the 2019 program offered similar fee waivers as this program, but only for 12 months. The 2022 program offers waivers for up to 24 months on our most desired routes. 2019 offered the same fee waivers no matter if it was a new or existing route. And so basically, if you want to go on an existing route, you get the same waivers as if you were bringing us a brand new one. This new one reduces the waiver amounts on existing routes, so we can encourage service and encourage airlines to add new routes and additional routes. 2019 was somewhat limited because it had a target city list, and so if an airline came to us with an idea, but the city wasn't on that list, we couldn't provide incentives for it. This new incentive program has a target city list for our highest demand routes, and it also gets our best incentives as a result. Then we have lower levels that are offered for other opportunities, so we don't limit our growth potential, because now with new airlines coming around, new aircraft types, routes previously may have not been viable, may be viable today, and so we don't want to limit ourselves. So we have, it's going to be a new program that stair steps down. 2022, this new one has a clawback provision where 2019 program did not. So for instance, we give incentives or marketing funds to an airline and they decide to exit the route within say 3 months. It has a provision where the city could go back and have them repay any marketing funds we give them if they don't meet the agreement for the incentives. There's been a couple of different iterations of incentive programs for the airport, and they either offer maybe just marketing funds or just waivers, but really never had both together, and that really didn't meet current industry standards. This new one offers both marketing funds and fee waivers, which is going to create a robust, very competitive incentive package that's going to meet the industry standards and exceed them in some ways, and kind of really set us apart and ahead of some other airports. This new program also offers additional marketing funds and rent waivers for new entrant airlines to encourage more airlines to come to Palm Springs. The 2019 program did not offer something like that. Waivers I have set to start on being available on March 1st, 22, marketing funds on July 1st of 22 to coincide with the start of the new fiscal year. The old program in 2019 had a cap of 500,000 total of waivers for the whole program. This one we set up to be an annual review during the budget season to determine the level of funds and waivers per fiscal year, and also what our goals may be, our community needs. Maybe one year we could add more funds or we could take some away. Kind of just depends what we're doing. It gives us some flexibility each year to go through to make the changes for what our needs may be at that time. A recommendation for the first fiscal year, and this one would be about $250,000 in available marketing funds for an airline, and then up to $1 million in waivers. We went with $1 million because, for example, if a new airline comes in, starts a daily service to say Washington, D.C. on the 737, they will get up approximately $308,000 in waivers. And so putting $1 million in there, we can try and get some of our top 3 markets knocked out of there and wouldn't really limit ourselves. But again, this is just a recommendation. When the budget year comes around, we can go around and see what we may want to do. So I'm going to go through each different option. There's 7 different options for incentives. Option 1, the very first one, is the best one, which is for daily year-round service, which is definitely something that is a target for the airport in our community. If it's a target airport, the target airports would be Atlanta, Chicago, Hawaii, Houston, New York, and Washington, D.C. We get 24 months of landing fee and terminal waivers. Those 2 waivers are currently offered in the current program, so that's not new. But what is new is actually we'd give them $50,000 to market. We do have stipulations in there for marketing funds. They do have to be spent within in the catchment area of the airport. They also have to mention our name or use our logo. So there are some stipulations on that to make sure that they use where you are. They also have to run their media plan by us and their ads for approval. So we do have say in how they are spending the money we are given to advertise their new service. The next option is less than daily year-round service. So year-round service, but maybe only offers 2 to 3 times a week. This one is, it only has 18 months of waivers for a target airport. Target airports being the same as what you saw on the previous slide. And then we have some for an unserved airport, which would be any airport without service. And then we have some incentives for an existing airport. So if they want to come in and provide maybe some competing service. But again, we are saving the best incentives for our target airports or unserved airports to encourage growth and more nonstop routes from the airport. The next one is one's also really important to us and Visit Greater Palm Springs is converting more of our seasonal routes to year round. So we have this one has incentives for an airline, so like, American Airlines to take their Chicago service to year round, or Delta to take Atlanta year round. And so we provide some incentives for some marketing funds to help spread the word and create awareness about it, but also some landing fee and terminal waivers just for the additional months. So say for right now, if Delta's running Atlanta October through April, then if they decide to take it year round, they get incentives for May, June, July, and August. And then of course, we also have for other existing seasonal airports. So right now, like Austin, Texas is a seasonal one. Des Moines is another seasonal one. So like say if an airport, if an airline wants to make those year round, we'd have some incentives to convert those to a year round route as well. Option 4 would be for seasonal service. We do have a lot of service, a lot of seasonal service. So I know definitely a goal of the community and the Visit Greater Palm Springs to have more year-round service. So we do want to offer some incentives for seasonal service, but they're not as good as the year-round service because again, that is our ultimate goal, is to have more year-round service. This one's for international service. Target airports are basically any international airport without existing nonstop service. And then we have some for existing airports if a competing airline wants to come on and offer that. Of course, this only applies to airports where they have US pre-clearance, since we do not have an FIS facility at this time. Another one is for short haul commuter service. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's some small airlines. One of them is Cape Air. They operate out of Boston, and they do fly little like 9-seater like Cessna 402s or Caravans to like Martha's Vineyard and things like that. There's some other airlines that are starting up and doing some West Coast service. So this one would be for someone to come into commuter flights to say like Santa Barbara, even Long Beach, San Diego, things like that. This particular one is only valid for airports within 150 nautical miles. The other programs I should have noted, they're not valid for airports within 150 nautical miles. So we don't want to give great incentives for somebody just to hop over to LAX or something like that. So again, so this one's gonna be something if somebody wants to come with a small plane and do something like San Diego, some commuter service, maybe Burbank, things like that. Option 7 and the final option is for new intra-airlines only. This is one that you don't see a lot in other airports. In my previous position, I managed over the course of time somewhere 60 different airports for Allegiant. So I worked in a lot of incentive programs with Allegiant, with a lot of airports, helping them build their incentive programs. And I only saw this one other time. And this one would give additional space waivers like for office space and a ticket counter for a new airline to come in for 1 year, and also additional marketing dollars to help build up their brand and their awareness in the market. And then, so that was, we have questions. That's all different incentive options. And so after this, now I'm going to go through, and we've given some incentives to Southwest and other airlines. So I've got a couple of examples here to kind of show, what's our ROI? So we're putting this out there, we're spending this money, but what are we getting back from it? So right now, we have through Q3 of 21 data from the DOT on passengers daily each way, which is PDU. That tells you how many people are traveling from Palm Springs to, say, Vegas, Denver, or Oakland on average every day. Before we had the service to Vegas, we had 0.8 people flying between Palm Springs and Las Vegas. Once Southwest came in, we now average 39.6 people per day going just to Las Vegas. And this is just to Vegas. This doesn't count people who are connecting through Vegas going to other places, but just that one market. Oakland, we got that one. That got incentivized to Southwest for Oakland. We had, I put the two, I combined it with San Francisco because there is some cannibalization. Now that we have Oakland service, we don't have quite as many people coming from SFO, but overall, if you combine the two, that market has grown. So we actually have an additional 80 people per day each way, so 160 people a day traveling between Palm Springs and the Oakland, San Francisco area. Denver in 2019, we only had about 54 people a day traveling each direction, so 108. Now we have almost 83 people a day. So with Southwest coming on that one, the market did grow almost to 29 more additional people. So we have, additionally, going one way, again, PDU is an industry term, since we're passengers daily each way. So for the round trip, you would just double it. So on average, we have 147.8 more people flying out just to those 3 markets, and then also flying in from those markets. I use this data to kind of calculate what our return is. So we use, there's another term we have is RPE, which is revenue per employment. We know how much revenue we bring in as an airport. You divide that over all the people who come through, fly through, and that gives you your average, your RPE, like how much money you make per person flying through your airport. I went really conservative and decided, I use only 30% of the arriving passengers. So say of those 147 people that now fly into those 3 markets, 30% of them are 44 people. Let's say they rent a car. We make about $69.39 per passenger is the average RP for that. So that would total, if you calculate it out for 365 days, $1.1 million annually in additional revenue just from those new people coming in if only 30% rent a car. On the departing side, we have, say, 30% of people of those 147, say they park at the airport. Well, that calculates out to about additional almost $73,000 a year in revenue. Let's say 30% of those people also go to one of the news and gift shops. That's about up to $79,000 a year in revenue that we didn't have before we had these new incentivized routes. And say 30% of people also dine, they grab a meal at the airport before they fly out. That's another $88,000 a year that we would make off these new incentivized routes. So our total revenue we're making off these 3 new routes, just from those new passengers coming through that weren't previously coming through our airport, is a little over $1.3 million per year. Our total incentives given for those 3 different routes was $449,000 was ours, so almost $450,000 was our total investment into that. So an estimated profit of $905,000 or over 100% ROI on our incentives. So I know it sounds like we're giving away a lot of money in waivers, but we do get things back. We actually, when the airline comes in, we give the incentives, we get a lot of other revenue, other sources that ends up coming back and paying us back quite a bit more than our initial investment was in that. So I think with that, questions, anybody? I'm sure it's probably going to be a few.
Raise your hand, Peter.
Yes. If I may, I have a general comment and then I have a couple of specific questions. As you know, I've always supported an expanded air service incentive program. I do 100% endorse this proposed program. In fact, I love it. Still, I'd like to voice some caution. It all goes back to our discussion on the strategic plan and shows why we cannot just approve these programs in a vacuum. They're all interconnected. I have no doubt Daniel will be super successful. The question is, when he is, are we in a position to comfortably handle this new service with the existing infrastructure that we have, i.e. the Bono course, the regional concourse, and as you know, presently, we are experiencing baggage delivery delays. So my point is, it's great to be successful, and I have no doubt we will be, but I mean, will we be able to keep up with it? And this is why I've so strongly suggested in the past that, to go about these items independently when they are really interconnected. So that's my point. But I have a couple of specific questions for Daniel or Ollie. First of all, when in the incentive option number 1, the target airports, when we talk about Washington, D.C., shouldn't we talk about really the metropolitan area that includes Baltimore, considering that Baltimore is a major hub for Southwest. So I think somehow reword it or put Baltimore in there, but I think Baltimore should be one of the target cities.
Okay.
Also, the way I'm looking at it is if Southwest goes to Love Field, is that a target city or not?
No, it's not, because we already have year-round service to the Dallas metro area. But that would fall under.
We have Houston in there, but not Dallas.
Well, that's current. So Love Field is currently a seasonal route. So if they were to convert that to a year-round, then they would qualify for some of the seasonal to year-round conversion incentives if they wanted to.
Okay.
But our main
And-
target city list is what I worked on with Ollie and Visit Greater Palm Springs, our highest demand, which being like Chicago, New York, DC.
Okay. And
Yeah.
tossing out a couple of more cities, I don't know if you've looked at them, if they make sense, but how about Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Montreal?
Peter, maybe I can jump in here. And commissioners, good evening. Thank you, Peter, as always, for your huge support of air service development in Palm Springs. You've been a long-time supporter of our efforts, so thank you very much. In terms of your first question around Baltimore, Daniel's plan definitely does encompass Baltimore within the Washington, D.C. metro target. So all of those cities you saw there were inclusive of airports within the same metro area. And I think the difference with, say, Houston is Houston's one of those markets where we're targeting an extension of a seasonal route to a year-round, whereas Dallas, we already have year-round. So the goal for Houston is to make that a summertime as well service. And the other cities you've named are really interesting cities. What we see when we look at visitation to Palm Springs is they fall in the next tier below the cities that Daniel's listed there. So Daniel's been really comprehensive in the cities that he's listed there because he didn't want to have a shopping list of cities there, which meant we were handing out money for everything, but he wanted to target things that meant the most sense to both our residents and our visitors alike.
Okay. And so my last question goes to the stipulations for marketing funds and support. You know, I got to tell you, Daniel wasn't around then, but when we changed our original incentive program to a waiver fee program, one of the reasons was that it was very cumbersome for airlines to seek approval, put in the reports, wait for us to okay it. And we opted because the previous executive director didn't think we could do both. We opted for the fee waiver, saying, well, okay, now the airline basically has the funds and they can use it for marketing. They don't have to use it for operational purposes. They can use it for anything they like. And so in this new program, the only thing that I don't like is the fact that basically we are going back to airport must approve in advance all advertising, promotional, blah, 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 blah. So I submit to you, if there is $10,000 at stake or $15,000 at stake, most airlines will just opt out and not go through the process of even applying because it's too cumbersome. But that's just my opinion, but I wanted to share it. Thank you.
Yeah, they'll be working directly with me on that. I don't anticipate that being an issue at all. When I was at Tulsa doing the same thing, they would run everything through us and it was very quick. I don't know who did that. Before I was here, the real program, I'm not sure how the process was for it, but when I was at Allegiant, we took a lot of incidents from airports and we didn't find it to be any kind of a hassle or problem. So I don't anticipate this being a problem on our end either, because now I'm here and we have a marketing director. So I think it might maybe make the process a little bit easier than it was in the past, perhaps.
Okay.
John Payne, you have your hand up. John, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. Short haul, this is vested self-interest and I will admit to it up front, but would love to see, and I'd be very curious about, Daniel, your comment and Ollie's around a short trip and sending short trips to LAX on a more frequent basis, a more convenient schedule for international connections to avoid the drive time of either 90 minutes to 5 hours, depending on time of day. So just curious about your comments.
Well, so a lot of that kind of comes through. There are some airlines that are starting up to do that kind of model, and I have spoken to a few of them. They have some interest in our market and doing some airports in around the LA area and Southern California. And also just through social media comments, we get a lot of requests, people wanting service to places like Burbank, just because they usually, just like your comment, to avoid the LA traffic. So that's why we threw that in there, because there is interest. We've heard from the public, and there are some other airlines that might have some interest as well. So we thought that'd be a good option to have.
John, if I can add in there, as a personal experience, I flew from Australia on Saturday back to Palm Springs, and I did the 6 a.m. drive from LAX to Palm Springs, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's a couple of options here. There's two types of the short haul that Daniel's targeting. There's the commuter market to the San Diegos, the Burbanks, the Santa Barbaras of the world, and then there's the connecting market, which you're speaking of, which is how do we encourage our international guests to fly directly into Palm Springs rather than battle through LA traffic and have a horrible first experience coming to Palm Springs. I think we're definitely working on both of those things, and I think that's what's the beauty of Daniel's design here, is that we actually do incentivize both of those targets, whether they be commuter markets to the Santa Barbaras or the San Diegos, as well as the connectivity for our international markets.
Great, excellent, thank you. I applaud the design, Daniel, and look forward to something to do with LAX when you can do it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
At least for Ollie's sake.
Let's go to Scott Miller, and Ken, you're up next.
Okay,
Scott?
thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I kind of agree. Actually, I totally agree with Commissioner Fremuth, is that we need to put this in context with the facility needs of the airport. And I think that is the second half of the question that we really need to discuss. And what are we going to be able to handle with this increase in design? Your staff is suggesting $1 million for the first year. It could be $2 million, it could be $3 million the second or third year. And my concern is our facilities are not necessarily keeping up with the demand. We've seen over and over again that our demands increased significantly over the last 5 months. But facilities, as we all know, take a much longer time to plan and to build. And I am very concerned that we are moving fast forward with marketing and getting airlines here. And we're at a snail's pace, no one's fault, but we're at a snail's pace in the facility part of this. And as I've experienced on numerous occasions, going into Palm Springs myself and with many friends, the baggage, the parking, the transportation to and from the airport are all negatives that no amount of incentives to airlines are going to overcome. And so I think we need to, as a commission, address those as well. Second, I do have a specific question, is I'm assuming that these types of programs occur at all of the airports, at Long Beach, at Burbank, at Orange County, San Diego, and all of those. Is there a industry standard for what is deemed successful? When you put $1 in, how many dollars did you expect back? I mean, is there some sort of matrix, some sort of research done by a national firm or an international firm that says, yeah, you've got a successful program if you get $3 back for every $1 you spend? That's what that's one of my two questions.
Not that I'm aware of being like an industry standard or something like that. Now I know, I mean, we have our own success to prove that we are invested in our Senate program is working, and we're definitely getting our money's worth out of that. As far as the industry standards, what you see more common is what I presented, having with marketing and incentive waiters and then different levels, basically, you know, for seasonal, less than daily, things like that. Ollie, are you aware of anything like a standard metric like that? I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
I don't know about specific matrix, but I would say looking at this program, it's very much standard in the industry, very much standard.
Okay.
Vice Chair Miller, if I can just add to that, I think, not trying to give you a long answer to your short question, but the challenge we have here is that we shouldn't be looking at the airport's incentive plan in a vacuum. It'll also be done in conjunction with Visit Greater Palm Springs. There's certain things that the airport can and can't do because of FAA regulations that Visit Greater Palm Springs is liberated from. And so the quantum of funding that Visit Greater Palm Springs can dedicate to any of these routes is significantly more. So when you do look at trying to measure these things on a national basis, you have to look at both what the airport does as well as what the visitor organization does. as well as the economic benefit to the community, which is usually what the two organizations are measuring it against. So it's quite a complex measure. And the answer to that is it depends on what you're trying to measure. If you're just looking at the airport investment, I haven't seen anything in that specific regard, but I've certainly seen economic impact assessments of what bringing new air service does for a community.
Well, it would be interesting if we could get some of those statistics. I would like to see him being a new commissioner. Maybe some of the commissioners who've been on the commission for several years have seen these types of things. But, I'm looking at a greater good. I'm looking at the taxpayers in Palm Springs. Are they getting a benefit out of this? I'm looking at the residents. Are the residents getting a benefit out of this? I know businesses are getting a benefit out of it because for every visitor that comes, there's hotel, there's restaurant, there's shopping. But I'm also looking at, and we should be looking at, what are residents? What are taxpayers? What are they getting out of this? And is it worth the money that is being spent as opposed to using that money for other things? So my second question, and this is the first time I appreciated getting the presentation before the commission meeting. So I want to thank Daniel or whoever got that to us because it gave us a chance to look at it. What we didn't get, however, was all the metrics and the statistics, the amounts that I'm more interested in terms of the dollars. We just saw that on the presentation that we saw. And I'd love to get those beforehand as well, because I don't know, have we have we validated those metrics that Daniel, you used? Now this is a question for Daniel. Daniel, have you validated or have we validated as an airport those percentages of people using this and using that? And do we know those are true, or are those educated guesses? I mean, how are we coming up with those? Because those are the metrics we're using to justify
the passenger numbers. Yeah, the passenger numbers come from the US DOT. Those are reported by the airline, so those are fact. Those are not just a guess. So we have that comes from the US, because the airlines have to report their ticket sales to the US DOT, a certain percentage of it, and that's where those numbers come from. So I pulled that from the DOT, and that's where we have that. The RPE is the revenue we come in. Victoria calculates that together, so we know what we pull in from each of those different aspects I pulled from. So, and that's, and of course, just look at the market growth, calculate it out by the number of days of the year, and that's how we come up with numbers.
Okay, so is there plans to try to do a more to do where we can get actual metrics? I mean, from sales and I mean, some sort of way to validate these. Besides I'm not talking about the number of flights, because yes, that's validated, but I'm talking about the other benefits. You're talking about rental cars, you're talking about parking, you're talking about things of that nature. Do we keep actual numbers and tie those numbers to increased passengers coming into the airport?
I mean, count how many people are renting cars, or what?
Well, yeah. For example, you said that. Okay. Yeah, okay. I understand. Sorry. No, we're not. There's not, unless we go to each flight and watch people go to the counter. We know people rent cars, obviously. But we're not going to know exactly how many people come off one plane and go rent a car. There's just no way for us to gather that information unless we follow them from the plane and see exactly where they go and what they do, honestly. So really, it's a lot of it. We take estimates because we know how many people come in. We know how many cars we have, rental cars, and how many sales we have in the shops and whatever, and then we can calculate out based over the employments and deplayments that we have. So as far as actually knowing exactly, 20 people from this flight rented a car, there's really no way for us for any airport to gather that unless they physically just follow the people from the plane. Right. Yeah, that's somewhat of my concern, is that we don't know if this is passengers, the new passengers that are being generated by the advertising that are doing those, or they're regular passengers that come anyway, month in and month out, that are renting more cars for some reason or not. And so, I'm a little concerned about that.
No, we know with our new passengers, because like Vegas beforehand, we only had 0.8 people flying between here and Vegas. Now we have almost 40 people a day going. So they're definitely all new people. They weren't flying between Palm Springs and Vegas before, and we have the DOT data to prove that. So they're definitely new people.
Okay. All right. Well, those are some, I would love to see a plan on maybe capturing that stuff even better at some point. And I don't have the answer to how, but it would be very helpful, especially when we're talking about millions of dollars now that you're recommending for these types of programs. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the other commissioners letting me talk.
Thanks,
You're
Scott.
welcome.
Ken?
I applaud this incentive plan, and I think it's great. To answer Mr. Miller on the tax revenue, all these people were taxing, or local residents are getting taxes from people behind the tree, people that are coming in. That's all tax dollars that the residents are having to pay. I share the concerns about the infrastructure. One of the things I just recently did, actually today, is I got a copy of the airport master plan that was approved by the city council in 2015. For all those interested in infrastructure, I suggest asking Ms. Brown for a copy of that. Also to look at the feasibility study in the 2019 official statement for the bond issue. I understand we're delaying all that planning for a while. That's fine. But for those who want to prepare for that, it's good reading to get some basic facts of what's been approved and what outside consultants thought. My question for Daniel is, you talk about, I'll just use Las Vegas as an example. I understand that Southwest is now, I saw it on Facebook either yesterday or today, that Southwest is now going to be running 2 flights a day, which is fantastic. Congratulations. But aren't a lot of those people on that plane transferring to other cities, since that's a hub for Southwest? And
Yeah, so
I mean, revenues that are generated by that.
Right. No, we didn't do. I didn't. We do get people that are flying and connecting on Southwest for there, but they could have been connecting, say, on a different hub, and I was going through Vegas instead. So instead, I just use the origin and destination traffic because we can see what each individual city. You can see what it was before. You can see how it grew, and so that's really the metrics we're able to really look at. Now, people that, of course, that are getting on that plane and connecting, they're also, eating in the airport and things like that. But we have to go literally probably every airport in the country, and it'd probably be very tedious. I don't know if I could even do it to figure out exactly if we have just enough people just connecting on through Southwest through Vegas, but previously could have been connecting through Phoenix. So you really just use the O&D data to really look at this and kind of justify if you're really doing well or not on it.
Okay, because I assume particularly with Southwest and knowing their business model and having worked with them before, if they're not filling the planes at 80%, they're not going to run that plane on a daily basis.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that plane's not just flying 39 people. They are going full. And the double daily starts in June. So we'll have twice that one. But yeah, no, Vegas is definitely a connecting city, a very large connecting city. So we definitely have a lot of traffic that connects through Vegas as well.
Okay.
But for the purposes of this one, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ollie.
I was just say, Ken, that explains why the number you're seeing there for Las Vegas is 38 per day. There's obviously 180 seats flying every day between Palm Springs and Las Vegas, but the number that Daniel's ascribed to just people flying between Palm Springs and Las Vegas or vice versa is 38. So that's how many people have grown. Previously, it was less than 1 person per day.
Okay. Thank you very much. And again, I suggest commissioners who are interested in infrastructure, read the master plan and the feasibility study. Thank you.
Christina, maybe we can make that available to all the commissioners after this meeting.
I did need to note. Sorry, I did need to note something on this one. The incentive program that I sent to you guys earlier, I noticed there was a mistake on options 1 and 2 on the unserved airport. Actually, it was supposed to be 30,000 in marketing, which that is what was on what I presented tonight. Did have the correct one. It was emailed. The marketing dollars for the daily year round should have been 30,000. And then for slide 5, the less than daily year round should have been 20,000. And that's what I presented tonight on, which is on the screen, was the corrected one, but what was sent to you guys had that error in it. So I apologize for that.
Are there any other questions for Daniel? Okay.
Vice Chairman, I just wanted to add, airport staff intends to send this for city council consideration on February 13th. So just so the commission is aware.
I'm sorry, Harry, say it one more time, please.
The staff intends to send the air service program to council on February 13th. So I just wanted to make the commission aware.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move over to the executive director's report. Harry?
Yes, I'll provide a report and then Victoria can present. Just a few updates. I had a follow-up for Commissioner Feltman. You had a question about early departures between 6 and 7 a.m. Our staff did look into that from the last meeting. We looked at the preceding 2 weeks to see if there were any unusual takeoffs. We didn't see anything other than normal business, which were the Alaska and American early departures. So we presume that weather conditions that day may have contributed to the increase in noise. That's just a guess, but we did look into it and I just wanted to report back on that.
Thank you.
In terms of our passenger boarding bridge project, we completed Bridge 7 and it was turned over to the airport today. We just got the keys today on that bridge. It is in operation. There are still a few punch list items that need to be resolved, but there's nothing significant. Aero Bridge, the contractor that installed those bridges, will be on site for another couple of weeks just to do some training with staff on maintaining and preventative maintenance. But beyond that, we're essentially calling the project closed. So I just wanted to provide that update. In terms of the customer facility charge increase, the CFC increase, that was originally supposed to go to the city council last week. We wanted to allow additional time for public notice requirements. So we did that. We moved that meeting, or excuse me, that action item on the city and council agenda to January 27th. The airport still intends to recommend that the council move forward with a $9 per day increase for the first 5 days of the rental car contract. And that's to support the landside development of the Conrack facility. We did receive a notice of a letter of protest from Enterprise. They are opposing the $9 per day fee. They think the cost is too high, especially since the design of the facility isn't complete. The airport's position right now is that the cost of any proposed project would exceed PSP's funding capability anyway. So the $9 per day rate is appropriate. Airport staff is also moving forward with negotiating the airline use agreement. We'll have a meeting on that in February with the airlines to discuss moving from a residual rate making methodology to a hybrid methodology. We did bring this before the commission, I believe in 2019 under Director Nolan, and then more recently under Director Aguirre in the fall, just to make sure that we were on the right path. I believe the commission at the time supported that move, so we will be speaking with the airlines about moving to that rate-making methodology next month. And then the final thing I have for the commission is the airport has received a lot of questions about the 5G rollout between Verizon and AT&T. I'm not sure if the commissioners have received questions. There have been a flurry of developments over the last week and particularly over the last 72 hours with that. I just wanted to make the commission aware that the FAA, for its part, has approved what they call modifications to standards or alternative methods of compliance to meet safety measures for aircraft flying in and out of exclusion zones for the 5G towers. And really for Palm Springs, those the 5G component really is irrelevant. We don't fly instrument approaches here. We don't have an ILS, so they don't impact aircraft as much as they would if you were in DC or New York or San Francisco. So the issue has been a non-issue for us, but I just wanted to make the commission aware that if you receive questions, that's what's happening and we are monitoring the situation. And that's all I have for the executive director's report. Are there any questions before I pass it to Victoria?
Questions? Ken, do you have your hand up again?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll take my
Okay.
head down.
Victoria?
Okay.
All right, hello again. I'm gonna go ahead and present the concession RFP schedule that we developed. Everybody should have gotten a copy of this in your packet there, or maybe even in the PowerPoint presentation packet. So we are moving forward with the RFP that was originally developed back in 2019, 2020. Our schedule is shown on the screen here that we are proposing to start the procurement RFP solicitation process in June of this year. We intend to have it out on the streets for 60 to 90 days. And then we also intend to do a virtual pre-proposal meeting with the community so that we could get the word out there and see if anybody has any questions, so we can do some back and forth, so we can entice the local community to participate and to see if they're interested in soliciting a bid or submitting a proposal for the solicitation. Then in October, we're going to do like our evaluations for the RFP. We intend to bring it to the Airport Commission in November, and then submit it to City Council in December and do an award of the agreement in January. And then the Parodies Agreement, it expires April 2023. So the anticipated goal of the new concession program would be to have it available no later than January 2023. Many items have been prepared from the prior RFP, so the airport staff will be making updates to certain documents such as the evaluation criteria, the actual RFP document itself, and doing an update to the draft concession agreement. The city staff has some involvement with this as well. They will be reviewing the architectural approvals, and we'll have legal counsel that's going to need to review the concession agreement. And then we also have to engage the FAA, since this RFP is in a time frame in excess of 5 years. We need to have their review for the justification of why we're having it for longer than 5 years and what it's going to look like in the future for us. So does anybody have any questions in regards to the concession RFP schedule?
Victoria, I do. It's Kevin.
Hi.
One is, are you going to review the criteria for selection with the commission at a future meeting? I know that those of us who were involved in the first round saw that information, and I think there was some valuable input from some of the commissioners. So is that going to happen? And
Okay.
is it something that you can distribute similar to what went into the package for people to take a look at and become familiar with?
I'm not sure if that could be something that we can distribute since this, but I can double check and I can find out.
I think last time maybe the marketing subcommittee looked at that information as well. Maybe that's another way of looking at this.
Okay, thanks for that.
I can't see everybody. Any questions?
Kevin?
Yes.
I was going to ask, would it be valuable to put together a subcommittee of the commission to work with staff in evaluating the RFP, and then the subcommittee and staff can come to the airport commission to do that. And then there's not any danger of contaminating the whole commission per se, but at least that the commission's interests and input would be part of the evaluation process. So that might be a way to facilitate.
I know, Scott, that was discussed in earlier meetings. Harry, to be honest with you, I can't remember where Ulysses landed on that. Do you recall?
Yeah, so Ulysses at the time was very much of the opinion that it wouldn't add value to the process in terms of the selection itself. It wouldn't add value to the process, to form a subcommittee. In terms of identifying what the criteria are for selection, I think all valuable input, from the commission is warranted, and we would certainly accept that. in the procurement process. But in terms of the selection, you know, that part, I don't know that that would be helpful. Not necessarily helpful, but that would add value for us.
Well, this is Jan Schmitz. It was the operations committee originally that reviewed the program and RFP. And I would say if there's any substantial modification to the RFP, it might be considered prudent to go back to the operations committee or directly to the commission.
So we have not had to date any substantial modifications of RFP. It pretty much exists as it did the first time that the commission saw it. However, we would come back to the commission if there were any substantial recommended changes to make sure that we were all on the same page about moving forward with those.
Okay.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that clarification. I do remember it was the operations committee that reviewed this and provided input at the time. So what are we agreeing to? Harry, are you saying that you'll make a presentation to the whole committee or send it to operations? Because the fact that half of the commissioners are new, I think provides an opportunity, and this is one of our priorities for 2022. I'd like to find a way to make sure that we all level set with the same information as you move through this process.
Yes, and so I wasn't here when it went to the operations committee the first time, so forgive me for not knowing the history on it. But yes, if we were to make any substantive changes, we would take it back to the operations committee just to get the nod to make sure that we were okay to move forward. Right now, the RFP that exists is the RFP, essentially the same RFP that existed before. So the commission has already seen it, already vetted it, and we don't intend to make any major changes at this point.
If that's the case, since it's a public document or was a public document, is there any issue with just sharing that with all commissioners, especially the new commissioners, to make them aware of what was put together?
I don't think there's an issue with that at all. No.
Okay, then let's do that. And then if there are questions that come out, we can address those questions in subsequent meetings. But since this is one of our two priorities, I think it's in the best interest for us to do that and get everybody on the same page. This is a really important process. And I'm happy to see that the timeline for this is consistent with what we talked about earlier. So thank you for that and sticking to that. That's great. And it'll make sure that whoever the successful vendor is, or all the vendors who are going to approach it, will have enough lead time to really engage local resources as they were doing before this was shut down in COVID. So I'm glad the schedule is there. Are there any other questions about this process?
I have one. I couldn't find my little hand on the computer.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about the RFP solicitation for 60 to 90 days. And I see a subdivision for the virtual pre-proposal meeting with community. I wasn't sure if that was a presentation or part of the solicitation. And also coupled with that, is the solicitation going out to, am I reading this correctly? Is it going out to the local community?
Yes, so we're going to post it on Planet Bids, which is the what procurement uses to solicit RFPs. We've even considered posting it online with social media, with possibly like reaching out to groups. I've seen it online on Twitter. People, different airports will post it so that everybody kind of has an idea of what RFP is out there for that airport. But so yes, to answer your question, the virtual pre-proposal meeting with the community is like during the process of the RFP solicitation. So it would get posted on Planet Bids, and then we will do a virtual meeting with the community to discuss that there's an RFP out there, that the airport's trying to get proposals back, and this is when it's due, and just give out more information to the community. So yes.
Patricia, you may recall that there was a concern in 2019 when we first worked on this, that the process, the whole bidding process was very complicated and could leave some local vendors at a loss. So I'm thrilled to see this there, because 2 years ago, the intent was to really get everybody educated about this process so they could participate. And I'm glad to see that's still part of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. Let's move forward. The financial summary.
Absolutely. Okay, so before I start to review the financials ending on December 31st, 2021, I'd like to note that there is a change in the expenditures. The quarterly allocations were not posted to the financials, so there's an added line item of an estimated expenses totaling 1.3 million. I've included that in this presentation, and you should have it in the presentation that you have, paper copy if you have it, or electronically, but it should be in there. All right, so the customer facility charges, they increased by about 218,000 when compared to prior period. And when compared to prior year, they increased by about 184,000. The passenger facility charges increased by approximately 736,000 when compared to prior year. The airport O&M budget is at 55% of the budgeted 22.5 million. When comparing the revenue this time of year compared to prior year, revenues are 3.7 million more than fiscal year 21. Below is the detail of revenue in Fund 415. The top three revenue generating accounts are on airport rental car at 3.8 million, terminal airline space at 1 million, and lease parking at 2.5 million. Fund 416, the airport improvement account, remains constant. As always, I like to state that not all revenues are received to date for December, and we will continue to process them as they're received.
Victoria, can you go back for a second, please? This is Scott Miller.
Sure.
The CARES Act monies. What has been decided about that?
So we decided that we are not in the need to draw down on the CARES Act funds at this moment.
So does the city hold the funds, or is it a reimbursement of the funds?
Reimbursement.
It's reimbursement.
Yes.
So those monies, staff though, thus has not allocated those funds to any specific project or use at this point?
They have not been allocated to any use at this point.
Okay, I definitely think that the finance committee and the budget committee should put that as one of their first things on the agenda to talk about that, because I think the airport has a lot of needs. I know the CARES Act has certain restrictions of what those funds can be used for. I'd actually write some of those things myself. But I still think there are certain projects the airport could use those funds for, and we should definitely look at them, especially since there's a lot of money there and there's no projects assigned to it. So just an observation and a suggestion to the chair of the budget committee.
Thank you for your feedback.
And can I interject on that one just a little bit? Sorry, this is Harry. I think, and so Commissioner Miller, absolutely, I think when it's time, you all, it should go before the Finance and Budget Committee for consideration. The issue we're having right now with all of the grant funds, CARES, ARPA, PRISA, all of the grant funds, is our airport use agreement with airlines right now is worded in such a way that we may be restricted in how we use them. And so we're trying to get some legal interpretation on that. And we can come back and brief you on that at a later time. But right now, that's part of the reason we haven't moved forward with using some of those funds.
Okay, that's interesting, because the CARES Act funds are from Congress. I'm kind of surprised any agreement would override what Congress votes on, but I'll be interested in following up on that, yes.
Can we add, Victoria, the CARES Act status of the funds as an appendix to this monthly report, so we don't have to ask each month. I've asked in prior months about it. It just feels like it's a bucket of money that kind of we talk about when we raise it, but I think it should be an appendix to this report.
So when you see it on this report showing that no funds have been expensed, or well, in this case, we haven't received any revenue where we haven't drawn down on the CARES Act, you're saying that you would like to see us just reporting on the status of the CARES funds?
Yeah, and it's a bucket of money. What's the amount of money? Could you restate that? So when we state it as zero, that's what is the available funds if it were to be used?
Yeah, 5.9 million, that budget right there off under the first column where it says fiscal year 22, it has under CARES Act, it has 5.9 million, almost 6 million. That's what's remaining in the CARES reimbursement amount.
Yeah, great. So I think we should have an appendix to the report that states the status of what activities have been taken in the prior month with regard to those. There's an outside deadline of when these funds can no longer be used. That should be stated as well, so we're not just moving along each month without recognition of it. What is that date? I believe it's several years out.
I have it. I just, let's see.
It's going to be 4 years from the time the grant was issued to the airport.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can we state that somewhere as either a annotation to the report or as an appendix?
Absolutely.
Because at some point, my understanding is that these funds are for infrastructure projects, and infrastructure projects take time. Obviously, you know that better than anybody else. So it's not like we can raise this on, with 320 days to go and say, oh, we're going to do this infrastructure project. It's a lead time kind of budget item.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, now to take a look at the expenditures, the customer facility and passenger facility funds have no change in expenditures compared to prior period. Fund 415 is showing the airport operations maintenance is around 40% of the budgeted 27 million at about 11 million in expenses. There is the additional line item showing the second quarter allocations totaling approximately 1.3 million. Fund 416 has a total expense of 10 million for special capital projects, POC ticket wing, and federal projects. This slide is an overview of revenue versus expenditures for the period ending December 31st, 2021. The CFC, PFC, and the airport O&M had a surplus. And even with the added expenditures for the allocations, there's still a surplus of 1.4 million in revenue for the O&M budget. And then 416 shows that it has a deficit of expenses as expenses exceeded revenue. Lastly is the airport's cash summary showing the restricted and airport O&M unrestricted funds. The cash flow for Fund 405 is around 25.9 million. Fund 410 is approximately 2.1 million. Fund 415's total unrestricted fund balance, including the O&M and CalPERS restricted funds, is approximately 9.4 million. And Fund 416's cash flow is 3.8 million. And this is the comparison of the in-plane, deplaned, and total passengers for fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 19. Overall, fiscal year 22 numbers averaged 29% higher than 2019 numbers. Okay, this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Questions, commissioners?
Ken, I read someplace or saw it in one of the news releases that the airport got $7.5 million of infrastructure money. Has that been finalized? I guess it was something that our local congressman announced.
We have not received the grant agreement from the FAA for it yet.
And are there any restrictions on that money, or is it just 7.5 million for infrastructure?
There are FAQs about it, and it does go into detail on the restrictions for it. I don't have that information right at hand, but I know it's available online and it's easily available for anybody to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions?
Sorry, I'm trying to make my screen larger so I could close this out.
Harry, any other comments? Or are we okay to move forward?
No, Vice Chairman, I have no other comments.
Okay, good. Let's go to commissioner requests and reports. Any requests or reports from commissioners? Scott?
Yeah, I think when you review the last minutes of last meeting, there were several items that were going to be brought up to this meeting in terms of contacts with other commissioner, a list of commissioners and things of that nature. So I was wondering what was happening with that.
I know we had talked about, Harry, about having somebody from the city legal department just review all the Brown Act and those issues. Apologies because we didn't get that into the agenda, but
yeah, I apologize for not covering that earlier. So we did ask for the city clerk and for the city attorney, or the attorney representing the city, to come and speak with the commission. And they did respond, and they said to communicate to you all that they are working with the city council on clarifying the rules around communications and how that's supposed to work within the commission. So essentially they said stand by, further information forthcoming, but I don't have an answer for you today.
I think, Scott, that this is going to be part of the overall presentation that they're working on the staff level about future commissions, how commissioners play, how commissions play. And I think some of these rules will be included in that as well. But if for some reason that's delayed, then we'll go back to them and ask if they would just clarify what the rules are today and make sure that's done at our next meeting.
Okay, I mean, it might be, I just know other commissioners from other commissions and they operate differently than our commission. And so that's, I'm a bit concerned, and I've been asking about this for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And so it's a little frustrating, at least for a new commissioner trying to, work within the commission structure, but I do know the Brown Act, having had numerous, sessions about the Brown Act and working in local government for almost 30 years. So, so it's just, the pace is kind of frustrating, and especially when each commissions are treated differently. So that's one of my things. But what I would like to ask maybe, Kevin, is that maybe these things that are brought up under this section by various commissioners and the requests, maybe we can make a rule that they're automatically listed in the next agenda so we don't lose track of them. And commissioners know that it'll be addressed. And so it's not, 2 or 3 months before someone, oh, I remember when someone brought this up, what happened, so that we can keep track of it. And then once something's disposed of, it's off the agenda. But if that could happen, I'd really appreciate that.
Agreed. Harry, I don't think there's any problem with Christina making notes of these requests, putting them in our minutes, and then we'll be sure to go back to those per Scott's idea.
Oh, absolutely. We can do that.
We can do that. We can do that. Other commissioner comments or requests? Anybody else?
A question for clarification to Harry. How long do you think it's going to take for the city attorney to come back?
I can't give an answer on that. And just to clarify, it's the city attorney, city clerk, and the city council working together. They did not provide a timeline. They just told me, essentially communicate to you all that they're working on it.
Okay. We also talked last time, kind of keying off of what Commissioner Miller said. We talked about subcommittees. Could we talk about a schedule for the subcommittees to meet and identify the chairs for budget, ops, marketing? Could we move forward on that?
I believe that Chairman Data made those appointments. We should probably circulate who's chairing those subcommittees and who's on those subcommittees. I know that, John, that was done when Aftab took over. We can circulate that again. So that's the first thing. In terms of when these subcommittees are meeting, I know that some people have approached me with the same question, like, do we have a schedule for these meetings? When are they going to be done? Any suggestions, Harry, how you want to manage that? And both in terms of distributing the list, I think that's easy enough because that was already done, but we just distribute to everybody again. And but some of these folks want to meet, and I think that what's our point of view about that?
I do believe that we had received some schedules from Christina had requested and received some schedules, and maybe she can provide some input on that. And then we can...
Yes, that is correct. That is part of your agenda packet for tonight. We added a new item. It is item
14A.
Thank you. Where we're listing the upcoming committee meetings. I have been in communication with Commissioner Adams. We are scheduling a landscape committee meeting for February 9th. So that is in the works. We're also scheduling a finance and budget committee meeting, I believe for March. We're just trying to get the date set for that.
Christina, I have not heard from anybody on that. Can we talk about that tomorrow?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
I was just working on the landscape committee since that's for February 1st, and then we'll get the finance and budget committee squared away also.
Good.
Go ahead, sorry.
John?
Yeah, I see future committee meetings, just that line item as 14A. Would it be possible, just who are the chairs of them? And then Christina, you're creating the meetings for members of that?
That is correct.
Great. Because I didn't see anything pass around, Kevin, where it listed the people and who's on it, et cetera. I could have missed it and I come back to all my notes. If it's
Nadia sent that out before her tenure ended.
I can resend it though.
We'll send it out again, John. We'll send it out again.
So if committee members want to contact the committee chairs, and because we don't have access to any of the committee chairs' email addresses or phone numbers, but we feel that maybe a committee meeting needs to be done, and if 2 or 3 of the committee members would like to have a committee member, how is that supposed to work?
Well, first of all, I don't see any reason why we don't have contact information for all commissioners. So and Harry, unless you disagree, I think we should distribute that. I've had the list of all the commissioners for the 3 or 4 years I've been around here. I don't think that's an issue. So that's the first thing. We should get that out to you quickly. And so everybody has everybody's names. And then what's been done in the past is that the committee chairmen have reached out to the subcommittee members, their members, to both confirm dates and agendas for these subcommittees. You may have seen, for example, the notes from the noise committee, their minutes in this packet. So I think number one, we'll send out the list of who's on what committee. We'll get the list of, unless you disagree, Harry, the names, addresses, and emails of all the commissioners. I don't think there's any issues with that. We've done it before. And then this is a great start, Christina. Let's just make sure the committee chairs fill in the dates, and let's communicate that to everybody so we know when we're trying to have these subcommittee meetings. So, and I'm not the attorney, but I can tell you what our practice has been. We have had informal conversations around different issues, and we're working on topics that are important. I don't see any issues around that. We've done that in the past. And I know that the committee chairs have reached out to the participants of the committee in terms of scheduling and creating agendas. I don't think there's an issue with that. I know that when other commissioners have interest, like if I'm not on budget, but I have a real interest to see what David and the committee are going to do, you can attend those meetings, you just can't participate. I know from our experience with the former chair, that's how it was done before. And I'm not sure if any of that violates Brown Act at this point, but that's how we've done it in the past. And again, we'll get further clarification, but I don't think that should hold up our meetings with the subcommittees and have the chair start to work on their committees.
So Vice Chairman Corcoran, I'm sorry. Is your request for airport staff to send that out? Because we would not be doing that without the city attorney or the city clerk, weighing in on that.
Well, if that's going to take a long time, because I know they're busy agendas, then I will take the responsibility to put that list together and send it. I don't want to add burden to the staff, but more importantly, I don't want to have you guys have to jump through a bunch of hoops. If it's something that they say that's fine, do it, then staff should do it. If they come back and it just seems like it's to be a lengthy process, it's going to complicate things for you or the staff, then between 3 or 4 of us who have the tenure here, we can put this list together and we'll get it out to everybody. So let's commit, we'll get it done. And then whatever the easiest process is, we'll get it down to you.
Hey, Kevin, is it maybe easier for all the commissioners after this meeting or tomorrow to send you their contact information? And then you can put that list together and then send it out to all of us. That might be easier for you as well. And if a commissioner doesn't want their information known, then they don't send you any of the information.
That's great. I will, that's a great idea. Thank you for that. My address is kevin@kevinjcorcoran.com. Kevin@kevinjcorcoran. It's like on my thing here. kevinjcorcoran.com. Send me your contact information. I'm happy to put that list together. And again, just to the chairs, we'll have a list of who they are. And those of you who are chairing committees, we'll just provide your update with Christina. We'll get the list of all these dates and times out.
I just put Kevin's email address in the chat.
Thanks, David. All right, any other commissioner requests? Thank you for this.
One more, John, from Commissioner Payne.
Go ahead, John.
I'm just curious because of COVID. I get a lot of questions around COVID in the airport. Harry, what is the current position vis-a-vis Palm Springs and vaxxing and boosting for airport personnel at Palm Springs International? And is there any change contemplated?
So I can tell you right now, the current city policy, there is no current city policy on mandatory vaccinations for personnel or boosting. I do know that our human resources director is working on that with our labor attorneys to try and craft the policy. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but right now there is no requirement within the airport for personnel to be vaccinated, nor is there a requirement for our staff to travel.
Thank you.
Okay, it's approaching 7 o'clock. Let's move forward. Harry, anything on the report of the city council actions you'd like to discuss?
No, there is not.
Okay. The airline activity reports are filed. They're with us. They're part of the packet. Any questions on any of that? Okay, we talked about the future committee meetings. We'll make sure that names get out, the address, the contact information, the committee assignments, the committee chairs, and we'll put all that out we'll get that out between Harry's team and mine. We'll see what happens. Are there any other comments, any other things that we've not talked about that someone wants to share? Okay, I want to thank the staff, both Harry, Victoria, and Daniel. There's a lot of work that went into this month's meeting. Also want to acknowledge as other commissioners have the benefit of having all of these presentations sent to us ahead of time. Again, appreciate that effort, and it just it helps us to be better prepared. And so I want to do more of that. I know we made the commitment to get the long-term plan for the airport to everybody. and encourage all commissioners, especially the new ones, take a look at that. You'll just get smarter about some of these issues if you see what that's been. And last but not least, we're sending our best to Aftab. We hope he'll be back in his leadership role next meeting. He sends his best, and we're sending our best back to him. So with that, I think we're done. Does somebody want to propose we end our session?
So moved.
So Mo, second.
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 All right, good. Thank you all for your time, and have a good month. Look forward to progress moving forward. Have a good night.